I will be talking about the bandwagon effect, specifically for Generation Z. The scientific article that I am citing talks about cognitive bias, and it talks about how Generation Z is a very broad group that engages in a lot of lifestyles. Specifically in America, there is multiple identities that young people try to conform to. So they're trying to engage with a macro culture, specifically in the United States. And whenever there are trends in fashion or activism, those are going to be consumed by Generation Z. And so, like I said earlier, the identities that people my age try to conform to are often in multiple categories. So, for the activism example, that would be a political identity that they try to adopt. And then in fashion, they have a consumer identity. And the consumer identity is probably the best example of the bandwagon, specifically in the United States. When they focused on focus groups, you can see the disparity between male and female participation in these trends. And so, whether or not they fully engage with certain, like, if they understand exactly what all these trends come and go, they are actively participating in it. And I remember towards the end of my last 2 years of high school, a lot of activism was very popular. And so that was an example of the political identity. But because those activism groups were organized and mobilized, that also became kind of a cultural trend. And that was something that united both men and women. So aesthetically, you would probably see more visually standout lifestyles with women, but in the political activist identity, you would see a lot of overlap because they were both participating in it. Also, the certain circumstances, like an election year or certain time periods for young people, like in the 90s, fashion had a lot of uh, the 90s had a lot of fashion for young people. And so that's very visually compelling. But for my circumstance in high school, activism was a very strong thing that kind of swept everything up after 2015. And so you see that contrast in 2013, 2014, not a very strong political identity, but a more consumer one. And so seeing those two things conflict with one another proves that younger people are more susceptible to uh, different identities at a given time. And that's what this article references.